Testing. All right, I think I'm live. So I'm just gonna make a quick video. This is a follow-up to another one I made a couple days ago when I was setting up OpenVPN with private internet access VPN, which is a paid subscription, and then doing that system-wide on PFsense. And I have a couple things I ran into, and if you're trying to set this up, in the first video, I gave a link, and it's in this video too, to instructions on how to do that, which is much quicker than watching a video. Just read the instructions. Even if you're the type of person like me, I like to watch a video, but for this, it's actually just much quicker to follow the instructions that I linked. And so anyway, in this sorry, the production value is very low here, but I think the info's good, so let's get going. I have a list here of stuff to go over, just stuff I noticed and tips. Like I said, if you're setting this up, I think some of these might be issues you run into or just tips to think about. So first thing, what I'm doing is using private internet access over PFsense or through PFsense. So it's centralized on my router and it works for any device connected on my network at my house. So all traffic, I believe all traffic is routed. I have to check that, but I believe all traffic is routed through private internet access VPN here. So first thing, I have 3 of these set up, just in case I want to switch over to a different one for either speed issues or location, if I want to be in a different location. So I have Chicago and 2 in Canada. If you're going to set up more than one of these, go into the ones that you don't use or aren't going to use as often and click this disable client, because these will automatically try to start and connect when your router starts up, and maybe other times too, like if you restart a service or something. So you only want one of these enabled at a time, because these will allow you to connect to more than one, and if it connects to more than one, I think the routing or the DNS or something gets all messed up and your internet will be ridiculously slow. So you only want one of these running at a time. The only way that maybe you could have 2, I think, is if, and I'm not sure on this, but I think is if you had like an interface group or maybe a bridge or something, I don't know, where both of them are being used, but it's better just have one, just be connected to one. The second thing I noticed, and I don't know how to get around this, I figured out how to speed it up a little bit, but you're gonna get much slower speeds if you go run a speed test. The internet doesn't feel slower to me, really. Like loading web pages, YouTube always takes a little bit because of all the images it's got to cache or load, but you know, like Newegg loads almost instantly. You know, IMDb loads almost instantly. So these web pages load quick, right? But if I'm not connected to the VPN and I run this speed test, I get like 920, 940, and my upload is always I'll get like 41 or 42 megabit per second. And with the VPN turned on, you can see I'm getting less than half of my speed, 247. And I've had tests as low as like 60 and 100 when I was connected to the Toronto one. Different times a day this changes, and I am wondering if that's due to the amount of people using private internet access at the time, or if this is because of some setting or limitation in PFsense. I'm not quite sure, but apologize for the coughing there. Gonna clear my throat. But I was able, if you look in the description in this video, you'll see I have listed some advanced or custom settings that go here. So these, if you enter, so in the instructions to set up private internet access on PFsense from Private Internet Access's website, it'll tell you to copy and paste these. So the highlighted section here. And then I found on the internet to paste these in. And after I did that, it did bump up the internet bandwidth speed test from like 200 to 240. So it increases it a little bit, but still nowhere near 900, which is disappointing. You know, it'd be nice to get like between like 700 and 800. You know what I mean? And actually, I have a gig and a half package from Comcast Xfinity, so I have like 1.5 meg or 1500 megabit download. So it, you know, it's a little bit frustrating that if I want to run the VPN and have anonymity system wide, I have to sacrifice so much download speed and bandwidth. I guess it's speed, but that's disappointing, right? But on the other hand, the good news is like web pages load quick, and you don't really notice it if you're downloading a lot of stuff. You might, I guess, like maybe when you're downloading you know, game updates or something from Steam or something like that, you might notice it more. Or they might take a little longer. But it's easy to shut off too. You don't have to have it on. All right, so that's that. Your speed will go down, so don't be surprised. That's just part of it. You can add in those things I just showed you, the advanced settings or custom settings, and that'll help at least a little bit. So okay, so I'm looking at my list here. PFsense. See, I don't even know like what I wrote down. Like I don't know what I wrote down corresponds to what I wanted to show you. Oh. Yeah, a lot of DNS stuff. Okay. So Jesus Christ, with the fucking throat clearing. All right. I think it's because I'm chewing gum. All right, I'm done with that. So Yeah. Something else, the main benefit, right, that I think is good and why I wanted to use Open VPN or private internet access through PFsense and not just through the app is because I use PF Blocker, and PF Blocker is a firewall package you can add on in PFsense, and it does no data. It does it blocks stuff by either there's two parts of it. It blocks stuff by either IP address or by DNS name. And you can have one or the other, both enabled. I have both enabled, and basically what it does is when you go to a bad website, you know, something that's blacklisted, you should get like this will pop up and say that that's not allowed. It'll also block a bunch of ads and like just malicious stuff, and depending on how you have it set up. So there's this feeds here, and you can click on it and install these different feeds, and then they'll automatically update once a day or once an hour or whatever you set it to. And that's the IP portion, and then there's like the DNS block list portion, which does it by domain name. But if we look at what is it, under logs maybe, or reports, you can see all the stuff that it's blocking, and it shows from what list or what feed it blocked it from. If you do set this up, don't just go install every feed, because it'll break your internet. It's too much. But it has, they're listed by groups PRI1 through like PRI4, and then like email stuff and whatnot. So only the PR ones will get less false positives, and as you go up the numbers, you'll get more false positives, and it'll block more stuff. So the default ones that are checked are fine, and then I had a couple others I added down here. This blocks like Tor stuff and whatnot. So you can play with that and figure that out. But anyway, it seems like this is actually working is the point. So this works while being able to use my private internet access VPN through PFsense. And it does not work, like the DNS+BL for sure doesn't work if you're using the private internet access app. So I have all this functionality in my router that I wasn't making use of, at least on the computers, or this computer that I was using private internet access app on all the time. And now that that's off, it is working, and I don't get pop-ups. It'll just block pop-ups. It blocks a lot of stuff. It actually works really good. So that's another benefit of using both private internet access on PFsense. And one other thing I'll mention while I'm doing this, I was playing around with the DNS. So in PFsense, you have a DNS forwarder and a DNS resolver, and DNS resolver is unbound, which is the service that it's using. And when you select DNS forwarder, it doesn't use Unbound anymore. And I was playing around just testing like DNS speeds. And by the way, if you wanna, if you're using PFsense and you want to choose like which DNS to use, you can download this DNS benchmark. And this thing is pretty awesome. So you run the benchmark, and it actually benchmarks the DNS, and you can select show fastest first, show cached, uncached, so on and so on. So you can run this and then pick out the few fastest ones and add them to PFsense, and you do that through it's unintuitive a little bit because there's DNS resolver and forwarder. You would think you would add them here, but you actually add them under system general setup, and then you can add the different DNSs that you want to use. So I used to use Google, and then I switched to Cloudflare, which is this one. And after running the benchmark, I found that this one actually was the fastest, and it was quite a bit faster, meaning lower ping, lower latency, and yeah, it was just quite a bit faster. And when you do run that too, you want to check for whatever country you're in. Like if you're in the United States, and you run it, you want to look for the lowest ping where you're going to be going mostly, which is going to be in the country you're in. Those are probably the websites you're going to go to mostly. So if you find a DNS that has like a really low ping in like Europe and you live in America, that probably isn't going to help you be quicker. And you know, selecting the right DNS server actually, I mean, it does make quite a bit of difference just on the speed that websites load and whatnot. You can actually notice it and feel it as you're, you know, going to websites and whatnot. So I don't know, it's a good idea to play with. Like I spend far too much time benchmarking DNS, which is kind of a weird thing to do. I think, like, let me benchmark my DNS. Yeah, all right. But anyway, so that's how you set up and add these. And I don't know if it helps or not to have the host name in here. Like it doesn't maybe need to resolve the host name. PFsense doesn't. I don't know if it helps or not with speed, but I added the host names. And if you don't know how to figure out what the host name is, you can open up a command line and then ns lookup and type in the IP of the DNS server. So like Google's is 888.8.8.8, and you hit enter and it'll actually give you the name. 1.1.1.1 is Cloudflare's DNS. Oh. Gotta type ns lookup though. And I think if you type ns lookup like that, now I'm in ns lookup. And then you can just and then you can just type them. So if you type ns lookup without an IP after it, the command line will then be in ns lookup basically, and then you can just type the IPs and yeah, you're good to go. So it's quicker if you're doing a bunch of them, I guess. But I added the names in here, and if these names are incorrect, you'll actually get an error at the top when you try and save it, and it'll say incorrect host name. And if the address is incorrect, it'll say incorrect IP, so you can't add incorrect DNS information. PFsense won't let you do that. The other thing I've tested somewhat extensively is this setting, which you can use local DNS, meaning that the PFsense DNS resolver will act as the DNS server, and ignore remote DNS servers, meaning ignore all these, so it'll only use what's in PFsense. I used to run with use local DNS and fall back to remote DNS servers, which are these. But after doing testing, for whatever reason, because you would figure if PFsense is local and it's locally at the place you're at using the computer, that it would be much quicker to use a local DNS server that can just, query the names and translate the numbers. And if you don't know what DNS is, it's basically how these IP addresses get translated to a name. So when you go to youtube.com, youtube.com is at an IP address. So your computer goes out to a DNS server and says, hey, where do I go? Like, how do I get to youtube.com? And the DNS server will send back the IP address. So domain naming server, I think, is what DNS stands for. Domain naming system. I don't know, one of those. I should know that. Like, I should be sure about that, but I'm not. For whatever reason, I just forget. But anyway, that's what it does. It translates IP addresses to names, so the human doesn't have to, type in the IP address when they want to go to YouTube or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, for whatever reason, you would think using PFsense locally would be quicker, but for me, it doesn't seem to be. It seems that using the remote ones is quicker. So that's kind of what I'm running with now. I may change it later back again and try using the local one again. I don't know. I switch it around and play with it like every 6 months and just go back and forth. But the other thing PFsense has is a DNS forwarder, which doesn't use Unbound, which is the service that the resolver uses. And the forwarder, I don't believe, can be used. The forwarder can't be used as a local DNS. So the forwarder won't have... I at least, this is what I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe if you're using the DNS forwarder, that this option, the use local option, won't work. It just won't work. If you're using the DNS forwarder, I believe it only forwards out to these servers, whatever you have listed here for DNS, right? So I tried running with DNS forwarder yesterday. I was playing with it. I've never used it before. And when you do this, you have to enable this and you have to shut off this. So you have to disable this, you have to save, you have to click apply, then go to the other one and do the opposite. So you have to enable one of these and disable the other one because they both use port 53. And That's just what you have to do. If you leave them both turned on, your internet won't work. You can still get into PFsense, at least I was able to, but your internet, you won't be able to load web pages and whatnot. The DNS forwarder is actually quicker. It seemed the most quick in use and the most snappy. And I don't remember if I ran a benchmark on both, but I could just feel that it was quicker. And the reason I'm not using it now is simply that PF blocker, when you're using the forwarder, DNS+BL won't work. If you go to services here, and we look at PF blocker, DNS+BL, and then this is the IP section of it. If you're using the forwarder, DNS+BL won't work because DNS+BL uses, guess what? Unbound, right? So DNS+BL, unbound mode, unbound Python mode. So yeah, if you want to use this, you can't use the forwarder. Which is, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like I said, low production value, but maybe there's some good info mixed in here. I don't know. Anyway, I think that's about all I got as far as this goes. I'm happy that I was able to get Open VPN working with private internet access, speed it up a little and whatnot. One other thing too is what I was wondering, and I haven't actually verified this yet. But when you use the private internet access app, there is DNS settings, like you can use Mace and just some other options, or through it you can use whatever your standard DNS is, which if you're using PFsense would be whatever is in, you know, whatever you set these to. So I was wondering how you go about using private internet access as DNS if you are doing it through PFsense. And I think I found the setting down here, add server provided DNS. So it says if this option is set, PFsense will use DNS servers assigned by remote open VPN server, so private internet access in our case, for its own purpose, including DNS forwarder, which is interesting. And the DNS resolver. So I think by clicking this, maybe it'll use the DNS that private internet access provides. But I have to test that for sure. And when you have this checked, I'm also not sure, so maybe I'll make a third video on this, but I'm also not sure if like it's using this section at all. I'm not sure if there's settings in this section or in the DNS resolver section that you need to check or do something with to allow the open VPN to be able to pull DNS from private internet access. So I'm not sure on that. I'm going to try to dig into it a little more and figure it out, and see like what DNS I'm actually using when I have that box checked. So other than that, I think that's all I got for you. So I don't know, maybe there was something interesting in this or useful. Maybe not. Anyway, have a good one, guys. Thanks.